Welcome everyone. My name is Joseph Dunn. I'm the Provincial Director of Success by 6 in BC. And welcome to the first of our 2017 webinar series. For the last several years, we've been doing these webinars throughout the months of the new year, really to provide an opportunity for all those in the early years sector to come together to learn about new resources, about promising practices, focusing on things like early years community development, early years screening, but really giving us an opportunity to come together to learn from the expertise in our field and to be able to bring it back to the communities where you live and work. Today we have the privilege of bringing to you some important new resources. This webinar will act as an orientation and an introduction to utilizing new online early years resources. The particular ones here are the Science of ECD and the Early Years Pro-D portal. So before we get to those presenters, I'll just remind everyone who's with us on the webinar that a recording of this webinar is being made and will be available on the Success by 6 provincial website. Many of your colleagues who weren't able to join with us at this time today are looking forward to viewing that at their convenience. And we've got a great agenda ahead of hearing from Mia Elfenbaum from the Science of ECD, speaking to us from Winnipeg, and then hearing from Catherine Riel from the Early Years Pro-D portal project. But before we get to hearing about these particular resources, I'd like to introduce Emily Horton, the Executive Director of the Provincial Office for the Early Years, who is the funder of these two initiatives and significantly can tell us about why these are so important to our government in supporting the work of the early years across BC. Emily?
Thanks so much, Joseph. So it's Emily Horton here, and it's a real privilege to be able to participate in this webinar series today. I really look forward to learning more from both Catherine and Mia. The Provincial Office for the Early Years has always had an eye on any sort of opportunity to improve quality in terms of the workforce capacity and opportunities for those professionals working across the early years sector to engage in ongoing professional development opportunities that support their continued learning and the quality of their practice. And so when we learned about both the Science of ECD and the opportunities around the Pro-D portal, we thought these were really important investment opportunities. In the case of the Science of ECD, around providing the opportunity for professionals to engage in sort of this totally awesome multimedia resource that supports so much learning across the sector. And then through the Pro-D portal, providing an opportunity for people to really connect around what opportunities are existing across the province and to be able to leverage those opportunities. So we're really excited from the government perspective to watch these initiatives unfold and to watch those in the sector really begin to interact with these two initiatives and learn from them.
Thanks so much, Emily. I think without further ado, we're going to dive into to the first presenter. Just a note for those of you participating in the webinar, if you have any questions, whether it's relating to technical issues or concerns, but much more importantly related to the material that's being presented by Mia or Catherine, please feel free to write in your questions. We'll be keeping track of those here at our Success by 6 office, and after each presenter there'll be a chance I'll bring forward those questions. If you want to put up your hand and have a microphone that's handy, you would be able to ask those questions yourself, but certainly along the way, if you'd like to type those in, we'll be keeping track of those. We'll let Mia respond to a few of those at the end of our first half hour. And then after both presenters have spoke, we'll open things up for more questions. So without further ado, I'm turning it over to Mia to talk to us about the Science of ECD. Thanks.
Hello, everyone, and hello from cold, chilly, snowy Winnipeg. I'm sure it's quite different than it is where you are, but I'm pleased to talk to you today. First of all, can you hear me and can you see my screen?
Yeah, everything is good, Mia.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to give you some background information on the Science of Early Child Development project. I'll do that rather quickly, and then I want to jump into what's happening in British Columbia. So the SECD project started about 15 years ago, and it was the time when brain development research started to really get attention. The ECE faculty, the Early Childhood Education faculty, at Red River College in Winnipeg. So the people here were really paying attention to that, but noticed that that content around brain development and what it means for the early years, it wasn't available in the textbooks that we were using. It was kind of this stock of knowledge that was housed in the ivory tower academia, and we wanted it to be available to our students. So in terms of getting that to our students, our first contact really here was Dr. Fraser Mustard. And if you remember the late Dr. Mustard, he was a champion of the importance of the early years. He was a really big advocate for getting the information out to frontline audiences, not just in early childhood education, but really all disciplines that involve working with children and families. So we approached Dr. Mustard about doing something to get the information out. He connected the people at Red River College with others at the University of Toronto, and that discussion resulted in a plan to work together to create a tool, and the tool is really about narrowing the gap between research and practice. So typically there's a 15-year gap between research being published and it having any kind of impact on practice. And that emerging science was coming out so quickly that we all agreed there was a real need to get the information out to frontline people, but to really speed up that timeline and not kind of wait that 15 years. So what we realized early on was that publishing a book was not the way to go. The information was coming out too quickly, so new research was being undertaken. Really, a book would have been out of date shortly after it was published. And because people at Red River College had previous experience creating videos as teaching tools, it really made sense for us to look at going multimedia in terms of this way of sharing the information. So I'm going to play a video for you now. I think it's just about 4 minutes, and this gives you a bit of a background on the science of early child development.
The foundation of adult health and well-being begins before conception and takes shape in the early years of life. Understanding the significance of early childhood development and experience is important for everyone, especially for those whose work directly affects children. The Science of Early Child Development, or SECD, is a knowledge translation and mobilization initiative that offers a series of online and offline multimedia educational resources. SECD online resources are living textbooks that are used by students, instructors, professors, and parent educators in over 25 different countries around the world.
The Lawson Foundation is interested in the development of children and youth, and all for the life course. There's a huge amount of research and knowledge that we now have on the early years and on early childhood development. Too often, when you look at research findings in the scientific world, one of the big problems is that knowledge often is not translated, and I would say even further, it's not mobilized in a way that people can actually use it on the ground. The science of ECD is engaging, it's interactive. It's great to be able to get it out there.
The SECD Living textbooks contain 5 modules covering a wide range of topics from early brain development and self-regulation to the social determinants of health. Each of the modules provides an overview of the topic, current research, and links to practice.
Health and competence is by investing in early child development.
SECD brings research and concepts to life with hundreds of video interviews of experts from around the globe, along with videos of children and caregivers, articles, reports, and interactive elements.
So one thing that's the best about hearing the researchers talk is that you can really see their passion and you're listening more intently. It's interesting. So I think that the science of early child development and the curriculum developed by Red River College is absolutely outstanding. It is evidence-based. I think it should be a mandated course for all educators, for all doctors, for anybody dealing with people. I started using it and I was using one edition, and since I've been using it for a few years only, there's been 3 editions. It really does have that capacity to update itself because it's online. It's used in the diploma and the degree. It's been used in graduate programs. I like the fact that you can take what you want from it.
My favorite part is the videos of children. You learn the content and then you can see the development happening in real life with children, and that helps it to be more meaningful, helps you to remember it.
SECD is constantly evolving. It has grown to be a suite of educational resources and training packages, on and offline, suited for audiences from graduate students to parents and caregivers.
We're extremely rigorous in our choice of what initiative we will be funding, but we know in many cases that some of it will be risky. The Science of ECD is always an example that we give of a risk that we've taken that has actually paid off in a very, very big way. You see initiatives that sometimes are brilliant at the beginning but remain more or less stagnant. I think the Science of ECD has evolved in a very, very exciting way.
I just see it as something that needs wide distribution because it will drive everything we do in the future in terms of public policy. It is the science about human development, and it's critically important to get that out, widely distributed.
For more information and to see a preview of the Science of Early Child Development, please visit us at scienceofecd.com.
All right, so I hope that worked reasonably well for you. I know sometimes video in webinars can be a little bit choppy. So as we saw in the video, the first SECD tool was a 5-module multimedia online resource. We now refer to these as, can you hear me? No, okay.
Hi. Mia, we're just having a little bit of issue with the clarity of your voice, so perhaps if you could just speak up a little bit more, that would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay, I think that I had to just change one setting. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. A little bit of that transition between the video and myself. So the first SECD tool was that 5-module multimedia online resource. As you heard in the video, we refer to those now as living textbooks. That first one came out in 2005, and at that time, primarily, it was used by early childhood education college programs. But since then, as you heard in the video, the project has really grown. We now have 4 different versions of that 5-module living textbook. 2 of them are really geared to the majority world, so areas internationally. And those products or resources were created with the Aga Khan Development Network as our partner. We also have 3 standalone modules, and those can be, as I say, standalone or used in addition to one of the living textbooks. So we have a child development primer that's available in both English and in French, and also a module on prenatal development. There are also some offline tools that we have, mostly with an international focus, and those are used in countries that have limited internet connectivity. I'll just say that while most of our resources are like textbooks, we also do run some online courses and professional development workshops. And now I want to jump to tell you the pièce de résistance, the initiative in British Columbia. So as you heard from Emily at the beginning, the Provincial Office for the Early Years has contracted with us to make some of our tools available to anyone in British Columbia. The resources that you have are the North American edition, which is our largest living textbook, and also the Child Development Primer in English and in French. So what we're looking at now is the home page. This home page can be accessed through the Early Years Pro-D portal, and I know also the link is also on many provincial government web pages. So this page is programmed so that only people who are physically in British Columbia can click through to the content. It uses geolocation, so it's the kind of thing if you've ever opened up something on a phone or a tablet and it will say, can we use Google Maps to find your location, you know, some message like that. Computers handle it a little bit differently, but that's that idea that your device, the software in your device will provide your location to this landing page, this home page, and as long as you're in BC, you can click right through. The slideshow banner here at the top of the web page is a way for us just to kind of give some highlights or featured content, if you will. I'll point out that we also have this slide here that links you to the ECE BC site because they're running one of our workshops. All right, I'm going to scroll down now to where the modules are. And as I mentioned, there's the North American edition, which is available, and then also the Child Development Primer in English and then in French. I'm going to expand the North American edition so you can see that the modules are collapsed together there. So we are going to come back to that. I'm going to close it right now and start off with the primer. The reason I want to start off with the primer is it's a smaller resource and it's at a more basic or introductory level. So we're going to go click on the primer here, which will take us to the first page of the Child Development Primer. So you can see the sidebar on the left. There are 8 pages, 8 web pages in the Child Development Primer, and each one of these could be a huge resource or a huge textbook on its own, but the idea of the primer is to give an overview of the information. So as I scroll down this page, you'll start to get a sense of the multimedia nature of the SECD resources. So there's some web text on the page, there are readings. The readings usually open up in another window. We call these pop-up readings. These are designed to be easy for you to print and to use in face-to-face settings. And of course it's going to be slow because we're together here today. I'm going to go back to the primer page and let the reading load. Of course 15 minutes ago when I tried this on my own, everything opened up really quickly. So just to give you an idea then, that I see that reading has loaded. Nope, it's not behaving today. Technology. So we can come back to that, but you can see that there are readings that pop up. Those are the kinds of things you might, if you were doing a face-to-face session and you wanted people to discuss something in small groups, you can use those readings in that way where you've printed them ahead. If you're using this for your own information, you could certainly look at it on screen or print it if you prefer. The videos, in this case, because we're starting off with a focus on child development, the videos give people a really good overview of what's happening with child development. So the first video, and these just open up this way, the first video goes through the first year of life, showing babies at different ages as they progress through that first year. And then the same thing with toddlerhood and then the preschool period. What you'll see a lot on our web pages are these questions for reflection. We think of them as ways to kind of either engage yourself to think a little bit more deeply, to process the information, but if somebody were using them in a face-to-face session, these are kind of perfect for a springboard for discussions. Another element on many of our pages are the expert interviews. We have interviewed over 80 experts around the world. Many of them we've interviewed more than once to talk about their work. And then we edit them into shorter clips. So you can see in this case it's Lillian Katz. She's talking about building a strong foundation, and that video is 3.5 minutes. I think I will, I'm going to open up Joan Durant. In this case, rather than fiddling with the audio again, I'll let it play for a little bit, and and you can see that the videos are closed captioned, so it is possible to just read. So in this case, you probably won't hear the audio. I'll just play a little bit of it so you can see how these expert interviews are integrated into the material. All right, I'm going to shut that off. I apologize. You know, sometimes a browser or a connection can be kind of finicky, and that seems to be the case here. Again, the captions really do play, and they played for me just before the webinar started, so I apologize for that. I'll show you another element here. Something that we have throughout the material are interactive. Usually they're review games. Sometimes they're things that you animated slideshows. So in this case, it's a little bit of a test yourself, and this review game asks questions that relate to the content in the primer, so you can kind of check yourself ahead of time. So the first question here in this case, I'll give you a few seconds to read that, and then you would make your choice and scratch off the answer. You know, and so of course, whether you were correct or incorrect in your choice, you get some more information, so you can just kind of review that item and then on to the next. In this case, because the primer also talks about the study of child development, some of the questions have to do with research methods and that sort of thing. Anyway, you can certainly go back and do that review game another time. With all of the content pages, you can click through to the next page, or you could use that table of contents to go to the information that you want. You also have the option to go back to the home page, which is what I'm going to do now. All right. I will quickly show you the French primer, and you'll recognize it because it's going to look very much like what we just saw. But I'll tell you that in addition to all of the web text and readings and all of the elements being translated into French, we also did filming at a Francophone children's center. So for example, if I go to the page on observation, these videos here were filmed at a children's center here in Winnipeg where all children and caregivers speak French. And so that there are those elements, they're not just subtitles French over English videos, and there were also some Francophone speakers who were the interviewed experts in this module. All right, expand my table of contents and go back to the home page. All right. So I told you that the North American edition is our largest living textbook. I will expand it now. There are 5 modules. The modules really act like chapters in a book, if you will, if I use that book analogy again, and the organization within each module is very similar. There's a lot of content here, well over 400 videos, both the expert interview type and the children and program type. So just to give you a little bit of a tour, I'm going to jump into the communicating and learning module, and I'll mention that unlike a book where you want to start with chapter 1 and work your way through, in the case of the modules you don't really have to do that. Each module it does stand alone, and you can go to the module that you're most interested in. So again, you'll see the multimedia nature of the page. This is another pop-up reading. Let's see if it's going to cooperate with me here today. I'll let that load. Again, the kind of thing that you can print off and use in a face-to-face setting, or if an individual just wanted to kind of give their eyes a break from the computer, they could print off those pieces and read the paper copy. We have the, I mentioned we've done a lot of work with the Aga Khan Development Network, and through that work we have filmed in over 10 countries around the world. The international examples are kind of woven through the North American edition. In this case, this was filming that was done in Egypt. I'm just going to play a few seconds of this. Again, you won't hear the audio in this case. The mother is reading in Arabic to the daughter. It is possible to use the full screen toggle that. If you were showing this in a group and you wanted to go full screen, you could do it that way. An individual at a computer might just keep it small like that. All right. Gives you just a little taste of that. Again, the questions for reflection afterwards that you could use yourself if you were doing this for your own information and professional development, or something you could use for group discussions. I'm going to continue down. You can see, get a sense of the variety on the page. Again, there's an expert interview embedded, and then some questions to think about. When I go back to the table of contents, I'll point out that each module has this overview section. You can see this on the left. Each module also has a research section, and it is not an exhaustive list of all of the research done, but examples of research in that content area. I'm going to go now to the page on early language development. And I'll point out we've got some videos with Janet Worker from the University of British Columbia. So in this one, she's talking about newborn language abilities. And in the second video, native language sensitivity. And so you might notice that these videos were filmed at different times. I mentioned that with many of the experts we've interviewed, we've come back to them a second time to give us updates on their work, or in some cases, if they're doing new research, we've interviewed them about that. This is another element that you'll find on some of our pages. The want to know more elements are for people who want to dig more deeply into any particular area. Sometimes they link to websites for exploration. Sometimes they provide links to more in-depth readings or reports. All right, and as I scroll down this page, you'll see again that combination of readings and video. All right, and another want to know more at the end. There we go, with a research report and more information about a study. Okay, so again, I could go on to the next page this way, or I could use the table of contents. In this case, what I'm going to do is expand the links to practice. That's the third section that every module has, and this is where it really gets into the nitty-gritty of the application of the information. So what does it mean for educators? What does it mean for parents? You know, the research that was highlighted, now let's link it to practice. I'm going to go to the page on guiding and teaching. And I'm sure that, oops, sorry about that. I'm sure that the page format will start to look familiar to you, that combination. In this case, we've got Dr. Jean Clinton from McMaster University, a video of a child who's very curious about a new baby, and some reflection on her mother's response to that whole scene, and why, you know, why the mother's response was supportive and helpful. We get into some information on play-based programs and how children can be supported to learn through play. Again, another international example, web text. Here's another topic that's introduced here. It's about medical play. These are scenes that we filmed with children who were pretending to be patients coming for appointments or procedures in hospital. So a way of looking at all of the ways that children who work, or that people who work with children and families need to understand the importance of play. Right. The page ends with some information on supporting literacy and also numeracy. So you can see there is a lot of information there. Right. I am going to go back to the home page and show you that I can get back now to any of the modules. In this case, I'll just go into the coping and competence module because I want to show you that at the top right of every page there's a search function. So this can be a way to help you narrow down what you're looking for, or where you want to go. So you can use the table of contents on the left. You can go back to the home page or to any of the modules or the primers using those sidebars. But in this case, I'm going to look up Paul Kershaw because I know that he's been interviewed for this resource, and perhaps I'm curious to see where in the Science of ECD there is information that relates to his work. So what comes up is there are 4 different pages. This is the Ecology of Childhood module. The next one is the Developmental Health module. So ECDH, that sort of gives me those, tells me. You can also see here I could filter it by module or by the section. In this case, I think that what I want to do is go to the, I'll see what is on this first page. Let's see where we can find Paul Kershaw on this page. So I'm going to scroll, again, apologize. I don't have to scroll down far, and I can see that there's a video with him talking about community engagement. So it would be easy for me to watch the video at that right there and see what else it has to say about that topic. Before I go back to the home page, I just want to point out that at the end of every module, there's a page with the reference list and also all of the interview transcripts, so that all of the expert interviews, you could find the transcript and read that if you'd like to follow along, or it makes it easy to quote somebody because you've got those transcripts. All right. I am now back on the home page. I'm going to point out one other feature here. I hope that I'm still okay for time. So I told you that there's a lot of information in these 5 modules and in the primers. Oops, keeps jumping on me. I'm going to go to the index of topics. Now, what this does, it's certainly not everything in SECD, but it does take you more directly to some topics. So what I'm going to do here is just a really quick little demonstration. If I were wanting to prepare a workshop on temperament, because perhaps I'm going to be talking to parents, I work with a parent group and they're interested in child temperament. So I'm going to go and see if there's anything on that topic, and in fact there are 2 pages that address temperament. So I'm going to open these in a new tab, these 2 pages, so I can see what I can find on temperament. Now, I've got to move this, sorry, my thing is blocked here. Now, depending on what browser you're in, I'm in Chrome. Other browsers might show this a different way, but usually there is some sort of feature where you can find something on a page. So if I wanted to see where is temperament on this particular web page, it takes me right to it. So I can see there's actually 17 instances of this word on this web page, but rather than scrolling through the page, I can go right to it and see that there's some information on temperament. So it gives some background information, talks about 3 broad dimensions of temperament. There's a reading, in this case, that will open up in another tab. There's a consider this reading, and there's also a want to know more with links to more in-depth information. Some more videos where Dr. Joan Durant is speaking about the temperament match between a child and a caregiver. So you can see as I scroll through the page, there's quite a bit of information there on temperament. Those pop-ups don't want to open for me today. The other page with temperament was this page 2.2, and then I could do that same thing, find temperament on the page. And then once I've narrowed down my search and I found the content in SECD that deals with temperament, I could use that for my own review and then to decide which parts of that are going to make sense for the session that I'm doing with parents. So there is a very quick demonstration of using the search function and then narrowing it down depending on what you're looking for. All right, I'm going to go back to that home page. There are just 2 other things I want to point out on this page. The first is the e-message sign up. So the Science of Early Child Development project is really about knowledge mobilization. It's about sharing information. So one of the things that we have is a monthly e-message. We promise we will not inundate your inbox. It's just once a month. The message that went out for the month of February is on family literacy. So you can see that message here. This message actually would come to your inbox if you subscribe to the e-message, and it will link you to this page where you can watch this short video that shows adults and children reading books around the world. So I'll point out that there's that sign up button right there, and then there's also a button that takes you to the e-message archive. We keep up the previous 6 months so you can see the kinds of messages that have gone out. Right, so I would encourage you to sign up for the e-message so that you can see that little monthly example and remind you of some of the content that's in this great big resource. The other thing I want to point out is there is this frequently asked questions and how-to page. So this tells you a little bit about the geolocation and how that's going to work on your computer so that you can allow the home page to check your location. And then at the bottom of the page you'll see that if you have any questions or you need any help, there's an email that goes to our team here so that we can respond to those questions. And that is the tour of the BC Access site for the Science of Early Child Development.
Thank you so much, Mia. As I think everyone on the call can appreciate, Mia, who's the project lead of the Science of Early Childhood Development at Red River College of Applied Arts and Sciences, was just really opening up to us the broad and accessible world that's available through this great new resource. I myself have just been blown away by the versatility and the ability for that information to be updated, to be so accessible to parents, to service providers, and everyone else who has an interest in learning. Just a few questions for you, Mia, before we move on. And once again, for all those on the webinar, if you have particular questions, we'll be able to come back to more of those after our second presenter. But a few initial questions, just because I know they're probably in the air. Can the materials be adapted by programs and service providers across BC? Which is to say, can only parts of the resources be taken, perhaps combined with localized materials? Is there any kind of copyright issues that people need to be concerned about, or is this wide open for how they want to be using them in their community?
I think that I'll point out, if you can still see my screen, there's that little caveat there that while the content is available to people in British Columbia, by clicking through to the resource, you agree to use the material for non-commercial, personal, and reference purposes only. So all kinds of education and training fall under that. While, you know, when you say can it be adapted, you can't adapt the web page itself, but certainly people should be using the material and just reference it as you would any other information that you access. So if you are, if I'm understanding the question correctly, if you were interested in something, say in the Coping and Competence module, you don't need to show the entire page or the whole module. You could certainly just go to the pieces that make sense for you. We would just ask that you reference it and that people don't pretend that this is their own material, but that they're accessing a resource that is available for educational use. Does that answer the question?
I think so, Mia. I think that, and as you pointed out, if people have more specific questions around this, they can follow up directly. Another question was, you had mentioned that there are workshops that are happening in BC right now. I think it was with the being provided to ECE BC members. Mm-hmm. Are there similar workshops available to other early years sector service providers, perhaps with family resource programs or other aspects of parent education? And what do these supports look like? How can they be accessed or organized?
Okay, so I'm going to actually open up or to go back to our overall website, not just the BC Access site, and I'll point out that we have a tab where you can see more information on our workshops. So we do these online professional development workshops where we partner with an organization and then it's delivered in a cooperative kind of way. Usually the partner organization handles the registration process. You know, they would promote the session to their members, collect the registration information, and then it comes over to us and we facilitate the workshop. So I'm going to scroll down. Some of, I think that the ones that have been going sort of this fall and winter, you can see the topics that we have done so far. So focusing on play, positive guidance, why brain development matters, and analyzing and improving program spaces. So those 4 workshops have been developed and have been offered now multiple times. In this case, we're offering them with early childhood education organizations, but we really could partner with any organization, and then the workshop would be tailored for that audience. So for example, the Why Brain Development Matters workshop is the discussion questions that people have in the online discussion forum are about what does that material mean for early childhood educators. But with a different audience, the questions would be tailored to that group. So if you're talking about people who work in family resource centers, it would be that processing that information for people who work directly with parents, and the questions might be more around how do we share this information with parents, how do we make it clear and understandable to parents. So we can work with any agency to deliver those. The limitation is, do we have the content in SECD? And as you see, there's a lot of content there, and we cover a lot of topics, but it's not everything under the sun. So, there'd be the limitation of do we have the material to put that workshop together. Typically, we run them for 2 to 3 weeks, and as long as people participate, and participation is defined as accessing the content and participating in the discussions. If people do that, then the facilitator lets the agency know that people have fulfilled the requirements, and the agency then would provide some kind of certificate or acknowledgement of participation. So you can see that it kind of starts with the agency to do the registration. The middle piece on facilitation and the running of the workshop is done by us, and then it goes back to that agency to somehow document for people that they have participated. So yeah, there's more information there, but certainly people can again get in touch with me if they have questions about or interested in running a session with us.
Thanks, Mia, and I'm sure our audience today appreciates how accessible that professional development opportunity would be for early childhood educators and others. Just one final question before we move on with our second presentation, and this was around the issue is if I were interested in focusing my search or my research on the site specifically on Indigenous and Aboriginal early years ways of knowing and research. Is there a way that I can bring my focus so that it is just looking at those particular pieces of the information available?
Yeah, and again, I think the search tool might be the way to go. So if hopefully I'm spelling this correctly, if I put in the word Indigenous, then you see the pages where there is information that is something on the page, if not the whole page, then is addressing that topic. So that's probably the quickest way to have a look at that.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Mia. I think all of us who've been following along, I'm sure just feeling overwhelmed by both the scope and just the clear quality of the information that's been put together here. And we'll be coming back. Once again, a reminder for anyone who has questions for Mia about the Science of ECD, hold on to those, or please just write them in, and we'll have a chance to come back to a few more questions at the end of our session today. So
great,
moving right along.
Much.
Thanks, Mia. Moving right along, we'll turn our attention to our other resource that we're focusing on today. And I'll be welcoming Catherine Riel, who is the project manager and the researcher with BC Campus, who's been critical to developing the Early Years Pro-D portal. This is a project that's been developing here in our province over the last couple of years, with certainly lots of input from those in your communities and across the early years sectors of BC. And it really is a work in progress, as Catherine will share with us, but it's an incredible piece of work already, and it's already connecting many of you and your colleagues to training and professional development across the province, and offers a great resource as we move forward. So I'll turn it over to you, Catherine, to tell us all about the portal and really open up for us the ease with which we can be learning about these opportunities available in BC.
Great. Thank you very much, Joseph. Before I begin, how is my audio? Can everyone hear me well?
It sounds great.
Okay, super. I'm looking at my first page of a PDF that I have on the screen. It says BC Campus in the top right-hand corner. And before I begin, I'd like to say that I am talking to you from snowy Victoria. So Mia, we share winter with you, and we've had the highest record of snowfall in our province for a long time. It's very beautiful, but we're ready for spring. And I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak with you this morning about the Early Years Professional Development Web Solution Pilot Project. I do represent a department of the Ministry of Education, Advanced Education, and it is called BC Campus. And we have been operating as a department for about 15 years, and our mandate is to support educational technologies with post-secondary institutions and partnered government associations and agencies. And we have been involved in collaborating with the Provincial Office for the Early Years in the last couple of years in looking at some of the challenges and opportunities that exist for those who work in the early years sector in our province, and ways with which we can support them in accessing professional development on an ongoing basis. And so what I'd like to do with you this morning is I'm going to share with you the site itself and just give you a demo of what our first iteration of the Early Years Professional Development web portal looks like. I'm going to then give you some explanation as to how it works. And then we'll look at why it was created in the first place and some of our plans for future development. So what I'm going to do is just exit out of this presentation and launch a web browser so that you can see the site itself. And the first thing I'm going to do is just describe our home page, and then I am going to look at the sign-up features as well as logging in as an organizer. The Early Years Professional Development site is really divided into three different sections. The first section is a search tool with which professionals can look for training opportunities in three basic ways: through a keyword search, through location, and as well as through dates in terms of a specific time period. And in order to do this, there's several ways with which people can look for events. One way is to just type in a keyword in the search field on the home page. So for instance, if I type in play and I click on the word search, that will take me to an events page that will list all the current offerings that exist and have been put into the site by organizers throughout the province. And you can see, even though the site is just over a month old, we have a fairly exhaustive list of various opportunities related to play. On that same page, you can actually narrow your search, if you wish, by selecting a category. And we have 12 categories with which you can choose from in order to search for a specific keyword. So for instance, if I wanted to narrow that category so that we were looking for events about play in child health and well-being, I can narrow that and click on search. And you can see it will give me a more refined search for different offerings that are available via that keyword. Now, each one of these listings provides you with a description of both the date and the time that it is being offered, the sponsor of that particular offering, and then these blue links take you to a more detailed description of the offering that is available. And this is based on a form that has been populated by a coordinator or an organizer of professional development in BC who has signed up on the site and provided this information. It gives you the date and the time, as well as some sharing opportunities. So for instance, if I wanted to download this particular event to my calendar, I can just click on the iCal mechanism, and then I can actually just click on that calendar date, and it will insert it right into my calendar as it appears here. Along with the categories that have also been selected that are most appropriate for this particular selection, it gives us also a brief description of the offering, as well as some details as to whether it's offered online, our registration details, our presenter, as well as that information about the presenter, and any contact information as well. There's also some information as to whether there is an accreditation associated with this event and how many hours that might be. And then at the very bottom of this description page is the opportunity to share this event through 3 basic tools. You can share it as a tweet, you can share it to your Facebook page, and it can be your organization Facebook page or your personal Facebook page. And we've also put a LinkedIn option there as well. I'm just going to head back to the home page now and show you just a couple of other opportunities to search. You can also search, for instance, if you're looking for a specific event by date. So in this case, if I'm looking for events that are happening in the month of March, I can select that date parameter and then click on the word search, and it will show me all of the events that are currently happening in March throughout British Columbia. And then lastly, the final search feature within this search tool is looking for events by location. So if I'm in an area of the province and I really want to look at events that are happening, upcoming events that are happening in, for instance, Terrace, BC, I can put in the location in the near field and click on search, and it will take me to the 2 offerings that are currently available and been posted for that area. On the left-hand side, you can also see that there's a calendar, and on that calendar there are various dates that have a color code associated with them, and it's these color-coded dates that actually give you an idea as to what else is happening in the province on that particular day. So for instance, on the 18th, if I click on the 18th, it will give me a listing of those events that are happening on that particular day throughout BC. So that's essentially the search mechanism. You do not need to sign up for the site in order to use it. Anyone can use this particular tool within the homepage, and it provides potential learners with an opportunity to see exactly what's available on any given day in any given location throughout BC. The second part of the homepage is the map itself. And this map really renders well for mobile devices such as your phone and tablets. And what this provides you with is a map, and on that map are either clusters of numbers, and those clusters indicate locations, or red placeholders, and those are also locations. And if either on my phone, my desktop machine, or on my tablet, I choose to drill down to any one of those locations, the more that I drill down, the more that I will see that those clusters individualize to actual locations. And when I click on each one of those markers, it will also give me a listing of what's available in that location on the map. Again, if I click on that blue link, it takes me directly to the offering and the description for that. As I go through the site itself, you'll also notice that along with the 2 tools that are available on the site, both the search mechanism as well as the map, there is also a learning showcase. And here's where we have put resources that are available at a provincial level. And you can see that the Science of Early Child Development is available here. And we've also put a link to further information about this important resource, including a link to the free access for the site. So that's what the site looks like when you come as a visitor and you haven't signed up. This is all available, publicly shared. And if you are a coordinator of training opportunities and you wish to sign up for the site, it's a matter of just clicking up in the top right-hand corner of the site. You click on the word sign up, and it takes you to an account page where you put in your username, your work email address, a chosen password, and the details about the organization that you represent. What we've done in order to make this authentication process as seamless as possible is to ensure that we have about 75 organizations with whom we have already put into a large database all of their domain names. And what that means is all of the website addresses associated with about 75 organizations throughout BC have been added to the site so that when a coordinator of professional development puts in their work address, if it's associated with their agency or institution, then they're automatically authenticated to the site through a confirmation email. One of the caveats to this is we understand that not everyone has a work email that is a close association with the address of their organization. So they might have a Google account or a TELUS email account or a Shaw email account. And in that case, we just ask people to contact us directly, and what we will do is manually enroll them as an organizer so that they will be able to post training events on the site as soon as possible. So let's log into the site as a typical organizer and see what happens. I'm just going to click on Login in the top right-hand corner, and I'm just typing in the word Olivia here. What we recommend is that the username that a prospective coordinator uses is something that's really simple and easy to remember. I've just put in my password by pasting the password that I had on my clipboard, and I'll click on the word Login. And the first thing you'll notice is the site itself doesn't change, but in the top right-hand corner, you'll now see something that is a name of the organization. So in this case, although I logged in as Olivia, I'm representing an organization, and I've made up this organization as Bradner Family Place. And Bradner Family Place now has the opportunity to post an event. And in posting an event, we try to make these mechanisms as simple as possible. It's just a matter of clicking on the word Post an Event, and then typing in some of the details of that event or copying and pasting it from a description that you already have. So let's type in a test event here. So I'm going to type in a sketch workshop. I just actually finished attending a facilitation workshop about using graphics, and so that's what I'll put in as a test today. And under the word when, you can put in the actual dates according to the calendar that shows up. So let's say that this particular test event is happening on March 31st. And you put in the time parameters associated with that event. So let's say that it's happening at 8 and it's a morning event. In terms of this form and populating the where field, what we've tried to do is make this as simple as possible for organizers. So when I begin to actually type in the address of a location, once I begin to type in the first 3 letters, what we've tried to do is pre-populate the site with as many different potential addresses as possible where we think training is happening. So in this case, I started to type in the word Caribou. And when I type in the first 3 letters, I get a list of potential places that are in those locations. And so I will select School District 27, and you can see that it pre-populates the form, and I don't have to fill in the rest of that. It also confirms that location on a map, and that allows me to go down to the description field and begin to fill in the description of this event. So here's where I will type in a description. And once I have either copied and pasted that description, I can also put a link to the site if I wish to add some more information to that as well. And then as I continue down this form, I can also select a category that the event is most clearly associated with. So in this case, I'll suggest that it is administration and communication, and it also has some association with curriculum development, child growth and development, and child health and well-being. If there's an online component, you can select either yes or no, put in the registration fee associated with that event, and then the final fields are associated with the presenter information, any registration contact information, both in email and a phone number, and a link to the registration if you have that as well. If there's some accreditation details associated with the event, you can add that in as well. So we'll just suggest that there is for this one. And then at the very bottom of the page, you also have the option of putting in an event image. And in this case, what we try to recommend is that people put in an event image that is really small and about the size of a credit card so that it will be listed on the top. You don't have to put in an image, but sometimes it's nice to see in the description itself. Once you've filled in the field, you click on the word Post an Event, and you receive a confirmation message that says your event has been posted, and then you just head back to the home page to see where that event is. So on the home page, I just scroll down, and what I've been doing is just drilling down into the map because I know that I placed it in Williams Lake. And you can see that the sketch workshop has appeared here along with the dates and the times. And again, I can just click on that particular listing to see what the details are about that. Now, we also realize that coordinators might need to go back and edit their events. And so any time in which you need to go back and make some changes to the events that you've posted, you can just click on the word Edit My Events in the top right-hand corner, and that will take you to a listing of the events that you have posted. And you have the option of either deleting that event or clicking on the event and making the changes that you wish to. Once you post that or update that event again, it will update with any new details that you have put on the edit form. So some questions about those actual events. Those events populate the map as well as the search database, and once they have finished occurring, so on April 1st, the sketch workshop, for instance, will no longer appear on the map or in the database. However, it will appear in the archive of events for that organizer, so that if it's an event that they are going to schedule again, they don't have to populate a form for all those details once again. So that's essentially the simplicity of the site that has been developed thus far. We have 5 basic functions to be able to view events, to be able to post events, to be able to edit those events, to share those events, as well as to sign up with a profile. We've intentionally made it as simple as possible so that the site itself renders and appears very quickly. And we've also included some details for people if they wish to share this particular site with others. At the very bottom of the page, there is a link that's entitled About Us, and it's in that About Us page that you can see who we are and what we are working with in terms of our goals and our purpose, as well as any other fast facts about the site. So that's essentially the site itself. What I'm going to do now is exit out of this web browser and take you back to our presentation just to talk a little bit about the background to this project and why we developed it in the first place and some of the needs that we're hoping to address. So I'm back in my presentation and on the PDF, and the 2 questions, why was it created and how was it updated, is what I'd like to talk about now. So this website is actually in response to some training needs that were identified in an environmental scan that was conducted in the fall of 2015. And what we did is we identified what kind of learning opportunities exist in the province through an inventory. And then we also talked to people as to some of the challenges and opportunities they've faced in both trying to find learning opportunities as well as trying to coordinate those opportunities in their community. And although many needs were discussed during some of those conversations, what we found were 3 primary needs. One is that people, both looking for opportunities and coordinating opportunities, were looking for a simple tool, online tool that they could use to both find training opportunities for the colleagues that they work with or the people with whom they serve, as well as a way in which to coordinate those training opportunities. In terms of coordination, we found that people who are involved in planning conferences and workshops were looking for some kind of online venue with which they could share training plans or find out about presenters and coordinate ideas and potential partnerships. And the third need was a way with which we could support continuous professional learning that was intentional, that was purposeful, that wasn't necessarily a reaction to a parameter of trying to meet a particular hour of accreditation, but that could be intentionally planned in the future and work within a coherent learning plan that the professionals sought and developed on their own or in consultation with the training coordinator. And so what we purposely did is we ensured that in thinking about a potential design that could be placed online, we brought together leaders from a variety of groups around BC. And these were leaders in government, nonprofit agencies, business, academic institutions, and our Aboriginal communities. And this is comprised of about 16 leaders who have met several times throughout the fall of 2016 to really identify what are some of those priorities that we should include in the first development of a site. We also understood that you could not build a site in its completion, offer it to our community throughout the province, and say it was done. We also understood that we had to ensure that it was undergoing an iterative development so that we analyze some of the needs that are currently existing throughout the province, develop some very simple functions and features on the site, receive continued feedback, and continue development before we deploy the next iteration of the site. So essentially what we're saying here is that the site itself is really its first basic prototype, and that from here we're going to build in some of those features that have been identified by the larger community. Our next iteration will then include some of the needs such as collaboration and communication functions and features. As I mentioned before then, we have really just the 5 basic functions on this site. But in the future, we have found that people would really like some other features and functions, and this is what we're currently working on for our next release. Some personalized notifications for users so that when they search for an event by possibly a favorite keyword or a favorite presenter, they will receive a notification via email that there has been a new training event posted on the site. Some way with which organizers and learners can discuss and collaborate about either planning a particular event or talking about an event and extending the learning beyond a finite experience to something whereby they're looking at more concepts and ideas on an ongoing basis. And then the final 2 features are some more advanced search functions. We realized that the first iteration of that search function was very basic, and that including some more advanced search features would be important. And also including some design features that support easy navigation so that when a posting has been completed by an organizer, it's really easy to find for people who are looking for ways in which to post an event in the best possible way possible in terms of including links and graphics. We understand that we will provide some visual and textual cues around that too, so that it provides a highly engaging environment for someone who's looking for an event. And in terms of current update, we have just launched the site on January 9th, and over the last 6 weeks, this is some of the statistics that we have followed in terms of traffic. Up until yesterday, we received a total of 1,664 visitors, and those are people who are coming to the site and taking a look at the site and engaging with the site by either searching for an event or clicking through. And out of those visitors of the site, about just under half of them, or actually 500 of them, have returned again, and that's really good to see. So not only are we having people coming to see the site for the first time, but we are also having them return. Right now we have 55 people who have registered on the site as an organizer and are posting events. And those 55 organizers have posted, as of yesterday, 156 training events throughout the province. And so what we're looking for are ways with which we can, as a community, look to support the uptake of this site. We don't have a big promotional formal plan in terms of looking at marketing strategies that are of high cost. We're really looking at word of mouth and by using some of our social media tools. And so my hope is that in sharing this information with you today, you will encourage your colleagues and those with whom you work with to sign up on the page, to post an event, and to share events as well as this tool with one another. A couple of days ago, I had a conversation with someone who said to me, well, my conference is actually happening in September of 2017. That's a long way down the road. Should I really post that event now? And I encourage them to post the event, because as they continue to update it, not only will people see that event on the site and be able to make plans accordingly, but as we add in the collaboration and communication features, there might be some opportunities for people to also learn about ways with which people are coordinating some of the specifics around that event, and learn from people and have a sense to really be mentored in terms of how to coordinate and establish some of the preparations for a successful event such as a large conference. And lastly, I encourage you to contact us. There's 2 ways with which you can find out more, or if you have a question about the site itself. We do have a help desk associated with the Early Years portal project, and so you can email that general email, earlyyears@bccampus.ca, And you can also contact me, particularly if you'd like to have another presentation to a group with whom you are working with, or if you have a specific feedback regarding ways with which we can make the site better and easier to use and engaging for all users, both potential learners as well as organizers. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I think everyone on our webinar today can appreciate how helpful it is to have such clear and effective presentations. That said, there are still some questions that people are writing in with, and I'd certainly encourage anyone on the webinar to, if you do have unanswered questions, to please continue to send those in. Just a few that I'm hoping you can give us direction about. The first is, how does one go about adding or having one added to the learning showcase if I was a community or an agency that had a learning resource that we thought would like to be part of that part of the home page? Is there a criteria? How is that being decided? We saw that the Science of ECD and a mention of kindergarten transitions was there, but what's the criteria for having learning resources added to that page?
Great, thank you for that question. Is my screen still being shared at this time?
Yes, yeah, we've got your,
okay.
You're in control.
Okay, great. I'm back on the home page then. And as I mentioned early on, I am working for BC Campus, and BC Campus works with the Provincial Office for the Early Years. And what we have done is this Learning Showcase has been worked in collaboration with the Provincial Office. And so these two Learning Showcase items are the two highlighted resources that the Provincial Office has asked us to put on the site. And so right now, this is what we are profiling, because they are accessible by the entire province, and because the Science of Early Child Development is a new product as well that we would like to promote as another place and link to that site. In terms of process, they can certainly contact me if there is an organizer who believes that there is a resource that would be especially helpful for everyone in the province. And what I will do is communicate with both Emily and her office to see whether that is something that we would like to showcase, and then we will work with that coordinator or organizer to see what would be the best place for it on the site.
Great. So I think, yeah, it sounds like the answer is if you've got something you want to showcase and share, then to just to get in touch, and that will be vetted, I guess, by the Provincial Office for the Early Years and your team there.
Yes.
Okay, great. A second, next question coming from Leave in the Okanagan, and she was diligently getting right on top of this as you were speaking, and trying to sign up an event, post an event on the portal, and realized that that her agency wasn't recognized as an organization that that could be posting. So she said she sent an email through to the website right now, but she was wanting to ask, can anyone register as an organizer, and what's the process looking like for becoming an organizer if you're not already on that list?
Great, thank you. And thank you for emailing us so that we can get you on that site. That's great. I'm going to just log out as the organizer that I was in before. I'm up on the sign up page again, and I'm just going to show you the agency and institution drop-down list. As the advisory group worked with us in terms of populating this particular list, one thing that we grappled with is who can actually post on this site? Do we want to keep it as open as possible to just anyone, or do we want to ensure that we are looking at agencies and organizations that are within BC and have a special mandate to also provide quality evidence-based learning for early years professionals throughout the province? And so what we started with is essentially this list of agencies. And we do realize that this is not a complete list, and so what we have been fielding is some requests by those who are representing agencies and organizations that are either regionally, provincially, or federally funded, or on the BC registry list for accredited associations. And it's through that process that we will manually enroll you and get you on the site. You'll notice actually at the very bottom of this exhaustive list, we do realize that it's not complete, and so I put in at the very bottom Z. I don't see my organization. And we do know that we have to keep adding to this, as there are many people who have a variety of different work emails as well that don't necessarily correspond to the domain name of their site. So please just contact us through early years at BC, or through early years at bccampus.ca, or my direct email, and we will get you signed up, usually within the day.
Great, thanks for that, Catherine. Another question. If I'm looking at the site and I'm realizing that my training needs, identifying that my training needs are not really being answered by the offerings available, what can I do as a service provider out there in BC who'd really like there to be something for what I'm trying to learn?
Well, at this point, we're really looking at feedback from our users in terms of, are we meeting, for instance, all of the various systems within the site? Is there an opportunity to look at, for instance, more family support offerings? Or are we actually looking for more people to identify offerings for Indigenous communities? We would encourage people to contact us, because it's through that contact of identifying that need that we can then reach out to our advisory group, who represents all of these categories, and say, what can we do to engage organizers to post events? Or if there are no events available, this is then a very good research tool for us to then come back and say, wow, we already noticed that there might be a potential deficit in this particular system. What can we do then to support this? That kind of leads me to the third part of this project, in that it is product-based. We have produced, in a sense, this website, but we also have a mandate at BC Campus to research the various components and process by which this project is being developed. And currently we're looking at uptake in terms of how people are coming to the site, how long they're spending on the site, but we're also looking at reach, ways in which we can extend this potential access and support to as many people as possible who work in the early years as professionals. And we're also looking at engagement and impact. And so if there are continued challenges or opportunities that we can continue to explore, whereby we either include those opportunities as a function or feature in the site, or we see it as an area of potential support, this is something that we can collaborate with the provincial office so that we can continue to meet the needs of a broad sector of people.
Thanks so much for giving us that perspective, Catherine. Well, it seems like we've come to the end of the questions that are available, and I guess we'll just shift to our final contact page, because really what this opportunity was today was to open up to the early years community really an introduction to these great new interactive and evolving resources that will be supporting your work across BC. And I guess the next step is really for all of the participants on the webinar, and for the many that will be following up, listening to this recording, to take a look, to experiment, to navigate these two resources. And when you have questions, as you very well may, I know that both Mia and Catherine are anxious and happy to hear what areas what feedback you may have, suggestions, and questions about how to navigate and make the most use of these in your work. So there on your screen, that's the contact information for Mia at the Red River College of Applied Arts and Sciences, Catherine with BC Campus, myself. If you have any further questions about the resources or more context, or if you need some support in getting connected with anyone across BC and the early years community, we're always happy to to be that liaison to bringing people together in early years community development. So once again, thank you to our presenters. Thanks to Emily for her opening words and recognizing the role of the Provincial Office of the Early Years in providing the funding for these resources for service providers and those of us in the early years field in BC. And I wish you all a wonderful, hopefully sunny afternoon for those who are coming out of the snowy winter. And we'll see you again soon on the next in our webinar series. And we'll be making sure to send that information directly to you through your contact emails. So have a great afternoon, and thanks again to our wonderful presenters for bringing this clarity to our professional development and learning. Bye-bye.